All right, welcome to episode 43 of the Inglorious Bastards campaign. With me again is Max, my friend Max, who played the character of Tesoro. So welcome to the podcast again.
Hey.
So Max was actually the first person that I interviewed for this campaign, because we started the campaign in Bree. And what made the most sense to me was to interview the characters that sort of came from the lands that we were traveling through. And we were traveling first through near the Shire in Breeland. And that recording didn't turn out so well. So I ended up recording my own voice as a sort of debrief and recap of the first 5 episodes. But that affords us the opportunity to interview Max again and talk about Tesoro as we sort of round the corner of Rohan and head back into Breeland and then later the Shire. So Max, the way that we do this, as you probably remember, is I'm gonna ask you some questions, and we'll just you can tell us a little bit about your experience with gaming, with D&D, with Tolkien. You can answer the questions. You can go off on as many tangents as you want. So if you don't mind, that's a good place to start. Let's start with your experience with D&D and or Tolkien, if you don't mind.
All right. Yeah, so I've been playing D&D a while. I used to play when I was younger at camp. That was when I first started. I always thought it was a fun game, definitely. Same with Lord of the Rings. I've been watching those since I was younger. And I actually, before we did this campaign, I read the books for the first time. I tried when I was younger, but it was a bit like I only got like the first 100 pages, I think, and they were still in the Shire. So like I was like, but I actually got around to it right before we started this campaign, which was great. I enjoyed them a lot.
I think a lot of people probably stall out right around the time that the hobbits get lost in the woods and Tom Bombadil shows up.
Yeah. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, so it's safe to say that Max is a lot younger than I am. So would you say that your first experience with Tolkien was the actual books, or was were the movies?
Yeah, it was definitely the movies for me, because I was, those came out. I was probably like, I was actually probably I don't think I saw the first one in the theaters. I think, because I was only like 5 or 6.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But, yeah. But I definitely watched them all as a kid. I definitely saw the second one in the theaters and the third one. But yeah, we had them on DVD and everything, and we watched them all the time. Marco was definitely very into them.
So yes, the other thing to mention here is that Max is Marco's brother in real life, and Marco plays Faradir. And this might actually be a good segue to talking about Tesoro's background and sort of how he came to this adventure. Now, Gildor Inglorian was tasked with assembling a fellowship, and he rounded up Faradir. Now, how do you fit into that equation? Can you remind us, if you remember?
Yeah, so Tesoro, he's always been quite a free spirit, and so he actually has traveled, before the campaign started, he has traveled between the Shire and Bree a lot, growing up, kind of, and in that time, he's kind of met Faradir, and they've become friends, and Faradir has kind of helped him, go through the forest and stuff for his travels before this campaign. And what else?
during you guys.
The first time he left the Shire was actually when he was 25 on his birthday, and he was determined to leave home for good. But he kind of ended up, going back and forth for the next 10 years with Faradir.
And you ended up in your origin session, which again is what we call sort of the pre-group, get to know your character sessions, right? Where we can, where you're just not, typical D&D fashion is everybody meets up in a bar and you're just expected to, have some sort of understanding that everybody's going to get everybody's back, right? That's we kind of we took it a step farther where you and Faradir actually played a session before we met up as a group, and you got into a little hijinks in the Barrow Down. So you guys ended up in Pterodon's barrow, and found a sort of decorative shield that he had etched his diamond on, right, and put some notes on as to where these various items from his diamond were located. All right. Well, right near the Barrow Downs, there's a section of very old woods, and someone very special lives there. And you actually have I don't want to say a relationship with her, but you have a friendship with her. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So if you are familiar with the books, you know that Tom Bombadil has a wife named Goldberry, and she's like a nymph, kind of, and they've also become friends.
And just a little foreshadowing there for you. We may actually encounter Goldberry in episode 45 or 46 coming up. So we'll get a little chance to see Tesoro and Goldberry interact. So far in this campaign, we have traveled up the River Horwell, across the Misty Mountains, across the River Breeland, into the Withered Heath, down through Erebor, through Mirkwood, across the Anduin, down south through the Vales. You've skirted Fangorn Forest. You've been to Isengard. You've been to the catacombs of Orthanc. The listeners have just finished your battle at the fords of Eisen when Riken was stabbed with the Morgul blade, and finally, you guys ended up, to save Riken's life, you guys ended up doing the ritual.
The White Hand episode?
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, the White Hand. You guys, I think that was that your favorite episode?
Probably. That was probably the funniest. That was when I laughed the hardest, I think.
I think you ended up making a meme.
I don't know. I mean, it's the meme I sent. I don't know if you remember the meme with the Saruman and the Uruk-hai. And you can't really see the bottom half of it.
And the meme says, "Now cough."
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Any other favorites from so far, or even going forward in part one?
Have they heard the drinking contest yet?
Oh yeah, that was that was back at Mountain Hall, Riken's home. As you guys exited Mirkwood, you guys got to celebrate. And I think what I tried to do as a DM is sort of diversify the episodes quite a bit. And you guys came out of Mirkwood. It was according to Adventures in Middle Earth, it's sort of one of the Shadowlands, right? So as you travel through there, you accrue shadow points, or it's possible to accrue shadow points. And it was a very depressing kind of. You encountered spiders. You met Riken's brother Ivoric, who was essentially mind controlled by this Avathari, this old creature of shadow that was in this well. And Riken ended up having to shoot off the head of his deceased father to break Ivoric out of this trance, and you guys had to run for your lives because you couldn't possibly defeat this Avathari. And after that session, I kind of thought to myself, these guys they need a little fun session. So we did a whole session, which ended up being like 4 or 5 episodes here of the podcast, where you guys did an archery contest and a melee contest with wooden swords, an axe throwing contest, which is where Burren picked up his quote unquote apprentice, and the part that you're talking about was probably the best. It might have actually been one of my favorite parts of the whole campaign, and that was the drinking contest. Do you want to fill or remind the listeners about that night?
Yeah, basically it was like it was this drinking contest, and you had to make a Constitution save first to see if you get more drunk, and then you have to make a dexterity, because the cup, right? You had to get the cup on the table, something like that.
Yeah, you had to slam the cup down and make sure it didn't fall over.
Oh, okay, yeah, and that was a dexterity check. So basically, Tesoro kept failing all of his Constitution checks, so he kept getting more and more drunk, but for some reason he kept succeeding on the dexterity checks, which had like disadvantage and all that, like the penalties and everything, and he kept just being very dexterous, and that's how he ended up winning. But he was completely
hammered
afterwards.
So I forget the levels of drunkenness. I think I borrowed this from something I saw online somewhere. But basically, I think I changed it just a little bit. But every time you failed a Constitution save, the next round would get harder to make the dexterity save. And so I think by the end, you had like a negative 16 to your dex save, and you still ended up beating everybody in the drinking contest.
Yeah, was it like, I think it ended up being between like me and Grimold, right?
I'm not sure. I think it was like you and
me and the big guy with the nipple rings, but we ended up using that for Grimold's character thing.
But so I mean, it fit. I think it fit with your character, and I think it fit with the whole like free nature of the Hobbit, right? Like he was kind of fun. He was kind of a fun-loving character. I would dare say the comic relief, and I think he started off the campaign even more so as the comic relief until we realized that he was one of our main damage dealers, right?
Yeah, I don't know why he did so much damage. He was like, it's because of all the sneak attack bonuses, I think.
Yeah. And you were a pretty good archer, and as well, so you could attack both close up and at range. But yeah, so seeing this Hobbit destroy everybody at the drinking contest, yet be completely hammered by the end, yet you're kind of still dancing around and singing, I think. Was just a great time.
There was that other time where by the what was it, the river with the red woman, where everyone was kind of super reluctant to eat or drink the food, and Tesoro just kind of downed his drink and then he turned red. Yeah,
it was like a Willy Wonka scene, right? But you were actually poisoned, I think, for a while.
Yeah, but I think his skin color stayed like pretty reddish after that
for a while. Yeah, for sure. Well, so like I said, we're kind of in the if I could borrow a Marvel term, we're kind of in the end game of part 1. So is there something that you want to let the listener know that they can look forward to, even in the short term or long term? Try not to give, if it's long term, try not to give too much away.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the final battle is pretty awesome, but that's all I'm going to say about that. In terms of Tesoro and his character, he has some really cool things coming up. I don't want to give too much away about that either, but there are some big changes for his character and how his character works, which also ends up almost kind of being expanded upon a lot in the second part of the series. But yeah, he has some big character changes coming up because of a choice he has to make, and that's all I should really say.
That's all you can say about that. Well, Tesoro is one of, I think, 2 characters that that fully participates, and I should say Max is one of the 2 players that plays through all 3 arcs of this campaign. So the listeners can look forward to more rolling and before he attacks, and more pipeweed smoking through the other 2 arcs.
Well, I was asleep for most of the second part, but
yet you somehow managed to answer some of the toughest riddles and questions.
Yeah. I think in this part, I was the first part. I also fell asleep for a good amount of the sessions too.
Well, we played late. We played really late some of the nights, and it was before the work week. So
well, I was still in college then, so I had papers and classes the next day, and pretty much I was dead by the time we would do our sessions. So
late on Sunday night. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to let you go, but thank you for coming, and hopefully we can have you back during Rise of the Mormogil.
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Yeah, thanks.
So you pass all the way back to Bree, and when you get to the prancing pony, Butterbur comes up to you, and by the way, you guys kind of get rooms and stuff. You agree to kind of meet down here. It's like the middle of the night, and Butterbur says, and most of you are down here. You can't find the bitch anywhere. What's his face is missing. What's his name?
Grimold.
Grimold, yeah. And you see, you don't know what's going on with him, but the bitch is missing. But Butterbur says your friend,
his nipples.
Your friend Gildor told me to tell you that he had no choice, that he had to leave, that the Grey Havens are under attack.
Oh, geez.
That's probably our fault.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, let's go fix that.
Yeah.
All right, and
I have no idea what you're talking about.
and that's where we'll leave it for the night.
That sounds terrible. Can we have 6 beers, please?
Ooh.
All pints, please.
I'll take
So
a
you
whole
guys-
barrel of ale.
You guys can do a fellowship period here, even though it's going to be a brief one, and you can level if you want.
We're just going to hang out here for a couple of weeks while shit goes bad at the Grey Havens.
Yeah.
So this will be your last level. We have 2 more sessions after this.
Cool.
Oh, man.
And I'm guessing you guys, the most direct route would be to sort of travel the great east-west road, kind of towards the Shire, and then north up into past Tower Hills.
Mm-hmm.
So looking on the map, let me show you. I prepared this for you. Looking on the map, this is where you traveled today. Those were the 3 kingdoms: the Arthendane, Rudar, and Cardolan. Those were the kingdoms of Arnor that broke eventually. And you were at Tharbad. You can see where you were on the map.
Across the river right there.
Yep. And let's see here if I have a Shire map. I did share it with you, but whatever. You can look on the map and you can sort of see where we're going to go. We're going to go through the Shire, and then up by the Tower Hills is kind of where I was planning to take you.
Sweet.
So we know what happens to Burren after this adventure, right? He's going to join his father, preparing to take back Moria. We know where Faradir is going to go if he survives. Riken, you weren't there in that session, but
I'm fucking going home, and I'm going to sit down.
No, your Heartfast asks you to clear out, to be a part of an expedition when you're done, to clear out Dolgador.
Yeah, I feel bad for him because I don't feel so honor-bound to do that anymore.
And so everybody else, like, we don't know what Anglin's going to do after this, but we've essentially, for some of your characters, you've been tasked with something after this adventure. And the reason I bring it up is because it kind of, again, I come back to why haven't we heard of your character in Lord of the Rings, right? In the Fellowship, right? So
You should just really make the last
Sit
fight.
down with a good book.
You should just kill us all in the last fight.
Well, some of you almost died in this fight. That was, I think, the closest you guys have come.
How many hit dice do we have, by the way? As much as our level, or
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
The Slayer
Plus
class
2.
in this game is
As much as your level plus 2, right?
So,
Wait, really?
Yeah, because you get one from me and one from
Oh,
Anglin,
but
too.
those aren't like real.
You get them
Those
for
are
long
just-
rests.
Yeah,
Well,
every
his
time
is
we
a
rest,
short
basically.
rest than
Those
mine,
aren't like
so-
actual hit dice, though. Those are just extra things.
It's extra, yeah.
So, what did you guys think? Was this challenging? More challenging?
Yeah, it was pretty
Yeah.
challenging.
That was a
I
little
almost
challenging.
I almost drowned and almost was eaten alive. So
I think it would have been pretty easy if I didn't make a crazy.
No, come on, it was awesome.
I mean, that's what you need, though. You need people doing crazy shit to make it fun in campaigns. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
actually, almost all of the elements killed me. I was on fire. I almost.
that's true. What'd you guys think of the ritual?
It was
That's
good.
cool.
It was cool. Yeah,
awesome.
the writing was great.
Oh man.
What would have happened? Were there any things that we could have misstepped? So like things would have gone even worse for the character doing it, or
Well, if you had gotten the ritual wrong, probably something would have happened. But you guys did it right. I mean, I had been private chatting some of you. Some of you had some ideas during the week, and you guys were on the right track. I mean, it was pretty much spelled out for you at this point. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next
man.
week.
That
Two
was
more
awesome.
sessions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
sounds good. Right, guys.